Hello, listeners. If you've been following my EA EMBA journey, you may have noticed that there was not an episode last week. And that's because I received some unfortunate news. And last week before we recorded, Stacey and I chatted, and I told her that unfortunately my mom was diagnosed with a very treatable form of cancer. I had just received that news. And Stacey, you were so wonderful to just chat with me about it. You were sort of the first person that I was talking to after I heard that. And I'm so grateful that you were there for me.
I'm glad. And as Zach knows, I went through the same thing with my mom. So yeah, we had a lot to talk about, and yeah, continuing to hope that your mom does well in her course of treatment.
Thank you. Yes. Stacey, we were talking about, do we want to mention this the next time we chatted for the podcast? I was very much of the mind that this could be useful for folks listening.
I agree with you. I mean, it's obviously you need to make the personal choice, first of all, of whether you want to bring something like this into your work, because this is your work, but also this one blends work and personal, right? Because it's also about you getting ready for this exam. Um, Life continues on, things happen as we're doing things like deciding to go to graduate school and get ready to take a test. And sometimes those things are good things, and sometimes those things really aren't good things. It's very common for me to be talking to people, my students or whomever, who are going through some kind of difficult and unexpected situation that comes up while they're studying. And so, yeah, it's one of the big things to talk about. Do you keep going? Do you put it on pause for a while if you are going to keep going? Or maybe you keep going and you slow down a little bit. And how does that all work? And how do you decide?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm having a bit of a hard time getting back on the horse, if you will. I feel like I was on a pretty good trajectory studying, working through the foundations of mathematics, doing practice questions, and then I just have completely lost track of where I was. And
Which makes complete sense. And, give yourself grace for that. That's fine. Priorities change, things change. It's okay.
so I want to ask you, first of all, Stacey, what is your advice for getting back on track?
Yeah, and so part of this I'll say too is when you're hitting, I'm going to call it life event as a euphemism for something challenging that is
Sure.
complex enough that you can't just come up with a new plan and then that's going to be the new plan. You're probably going to need to adjust multiple times as things go and you get new information and just whatever. And so first of all, just give yourself the permission to take it a little bit more day by day, to make changes to your plan, or even to say, well, I want to still try to be ambitious with things, but I am giving myself the grace a little bit to just know that I might not be able to hit everything because I don't have all the information. But things can change tomorrow or next week, and then my plans might need to change too. So just take a deep breath and allow yourself to know that that's all okay. At the same time, if you do still have this goal of wanting to take this exam and go to grad school, it can be helpful sometimes to have something to focus on to kind of get your mind out of thinking about the what ifs and the unknowns of whatever the life situation is that's going on that's making it tougher to study right now. So a couple of things there. One is if the plan that you had already been using before this came up had been working for you, then the first thing to start is to just go back to that and say, okay, this was my plan. Can I go back and can I just restart that plan from where I was? Do I need to change the pacing of it or the frequency of it? So depending on the situation that someone's dealing with, if you now have multiple doctor's appointments, either yourself or taking someone else, a couple times a week, and that's changing your schedule or something like that, then just factor that in like you would anything else, where you might have to have fewer study sessions per week, but you're still following the plan that you had. You're just changing the spacing of it a little bit, for example.
I think that's where I need to focus on, because I felt like, oh gosh, I've missed a whole week and I need to double up everything that I've been doing to get back on track, because I don't like being behind personally. There's an element of pressure for recording a podcast weekly with you.
There's that. You have added another level of deadlines to your process.
So there was part of me that was like, I got to go double speed and get
So
back on track.
I think there are two broad approaches you can use here. And it's going to depend upon really ultimately, like, do you have a deadline that you still want to hit? If you were planning to take the test 6 weeks from now, because 6 weeks and a day from now is the deadline of a program that you really want to go to, you might have to change your deadline. You might have to decide, you know what, this is big enough that I'm going to have to push my planned start date to the next, year or the next semester or whatever it is when they have their start dates. But it could also be something that you think you can handle now, depending again on whatever it was that interrupted your studies, that you think you can, okay, I'm going to work double time for the next couple of weeks, get caught back up, and I think I can still hit that 6-week deadline. If you don't have that kind of constraint in your plans, then I would encourage you to just go, you know what, that week is it's just gone. It's in a black hole. It doesn't exist. Just pick up where you left off. And if you had already had a test date in mind or whatever, just push that back a week and just pick up where you left it.
Yeah. I was aiming to take the test by the end of the year because early next year I have some artistic endeavors that will take up a lot of evenings and weekends. So I anticipate not having a lot of time to study during evenings and weekends, of course. So
So then try that. So you're trying to preserve, right, this future other thing that you have that's also a priority for you. So go ahead and try and see, like, for the next week, the next 2 weeks, just try to work at a bit of a higher pace. So that would mean adding some study sessions to your calendar that weren't there before. That might also mean making some sacrifices right now on other things that you'd plan to do in the next few weeks, but you're making that trade-off because there's something else you want in January, right? And so you're deciding what you want to prioritize more. And try it for a week and see how that goes. And try it for another week. If that goes okay, try it for another week and see how it goes. It may be the case that ends up working, that you get caught back up and that you can still hit the December deadline. It may be that other things come up and that changes your timeline. You can't predict the future. That's okay. But go ahead and try it and see what happens. Can I ask you a question or two?
please.
So you said that you've been you have been struggling with getting back into it, and I think the questions I have for you, I think, will also help other people to think about what's going on and then what might actually help to get themselves back into it. Has it been difficult to start a study session versus you start it but then you have difficulty concentrating? Is it all of the above?
I can definitely get started with the study session, but then I just lose absolute focus. I have my phone on me all the time. And
is that because you're either waiting for or worried that you might get some calm from your mom or something like that? Or
I don't even expect to get regular updates. I
okay.
just have this anxiety that I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
And I know that with time that will fade, and I'm a naturally anxious person. So this is not unusual behavior for me, but I'm having a hard time focusing.
Yeah. Okay. So the phone is one thing that you mentioned as a distraction. Are there other things happening too, like thoughts about what's going on with your mom? You're getting distracted by thinking about, or even other things that, because maybe your anxiety is ratcheted up right now. So maybe other things are also pinging in your brain that you don't want to be thinking about while you're studying.
Yeah, just generally anxious about timing of things. But I have a trip coming up and
Okay.
her surgery might be during the trip. And do I not go on the trip? And
Yeah.
I don't like that I'm even thinking about, it shouldn't even be a thought. Of course I won't go on the trip.
These are the kinds of things that are popping up. And so what you're describing, I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever, in any sense, but I've heard these described as essentially intrusive thoughts. The way that I think about this is just thoughts that you're having right now that you don't want to have right now. You want to be thinking about something else right now, and then these things keep pinging into your brain. One of the things that I have found helpful for that, and that a lot of my students have found helpful as well, is doing a little bit of mindfulness training, mindfulness meditation, that sort of thing. And when I first heard about this, I was like, I just kind of was like, and then I did some reading about it and I tested it out and I discovered that it wasn't what my false idea of what knowing nothing about meditation or knowing, I thought it was, I don't know, more, whatever, less helpful than it actually is. I was uninformed. It's really about training your brain to be able to handle, and it's not to stop intrusive thoughts, because intrusive thoughts are going to get into our, they're going to pop into our brains, and there's really not a great way to stop them. But it's about a way to handle when they're happening, to be able to set them aside for a period of time and to continue focusing on whatever it is that you want to focus on right now. And so it could be something that's along the lines of, oh, I'm going to use a really silly example that, oh, I'm doing this thing, but now my brain's like, wait, did I lock my door when I left the house today? Is my door locked? Wait, I don't want to be thinking about that right now, but it's just my anxiety
Yeah.
coming in because I don't want to focus on the thing in front of me and it's trying to pull me away. And it's a method to essentially allow yourself to acknowledge the thought, to be like, yep, and this is happening and it's probably happening because you're actually anxious about something else. Set that aside, like, acknowledge the thought, set it aside. You can think about it again in 10 minutes, in 20 minutes, and whatever. And then you're going to set up your study period. So it's like in a half an hour, you're going to study for 25 minutes, and then you're going to give yourself 5 minutes or 27 minutes and give yourself 3 minutes. And in that couple of minutes, you can check your phone to see if your mom did contact you. You can let the intrusive thought come back in and think about it all you want in that little break. Like you can do whatever you want. You can let it all flood in that 3 minutes. And then you're going to decide again for another 25 or 27 or whatever minutes.
This is so interesting and obvious and not at the same time. Like I've never thought about scheduling my anxiety. It's always kind of felt like something that was always there. You've unlocked a new type of therapy, I think.
I mean, this is not me creating this. This is things that I've read that other people have, developed. But I do recommend. I would actually go to UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. They have a whole mindfulness center basically, and they have both free and paid resources, but they do have a robust number of free resources on their website that can help you to learn how to do this There's these little mindsets and meditation things that you can do even for just 60 seconds to help get yourself back on track, or take a deep breath and reset and be like, okay, I got to keep going on this right now. The other thing that I have found works for me, try it and see. Your mileage may vary, but I use this when I'm actually taking standardized tests or practice tests. A lot of times the intrusive thoughts that will come in will be I'm thinking about the last problem. I'll be second guessing myself on the last problem. Wait, did I do that right? Did I make a mistake? While I'm trying to solve the current problem, which is obviously not a good practice for taking a test.
Not really.
Right? It's not. You're distracting yourself in the middle of the test. And so what I tell myself is, oh yeah, you can think about that as soon as you finish the problem that you're on right now. So I don't tell myself not to think about it, because if I tell myself not to think about it, I'm just going to keep thinking about it. But I tell myself, you just have to finish this one problem and then you can think about it. And this one problem's only going to be a couple minutes, right? So you can think about this in a couple minutes, just finish this one problem. And then I finish that problem, and half the time I've forgotten about it by the time I'm done with the problem. But if I start the next problem and my brain's still going, I'm like, you can think about this just after you finish this one problem. And I just keep doing that until the end of the test if it keeps going. But usually after 2 or 3 problems, I've moved myself out of it. I've gotten past it. And now I can just keep going until another one pops up, and then I just do the same thing.
Yeah. Somehow our brains are the most powerful computers in the world, and we can still trick them. They can still play tricks on us. It's
your
really
own brain playing a trick on your own brain. So
yeah,
something there. But things like that. And there are all kinds of, Google this or ask your friends and find out what other people do. But there are things like this. The core idea basically is, don't tell yourself not to stress about something or not to think about a certain thing, because that's the surefire way to just keep thinking about and stressing about that thing.
Yeah.
It's finding a way to distract yourself for a period of time. And so you acknowledge the thought, and then you actually somehow set aside time or tell yourself you're setting aside time to deal with that thing later. And maybe you actually will, and maybe you'll forget about it by the time that time comes.
Yeah. I will say that you have reminded me that I do catch myself when I'm doing practice problems or example problems that I'm not breathing. It's not good, obviously.
Yeah, I'm so stressed about this problem.
And it happens, I think, most with data sufficiency, because as knowledgeable as I am about the question types of these exams, it still confuses me, what these options mean. And I just need a breathing exercise, I think, for that.
That alone. Yeah. Yeah. And mindfulness practices can help you with breathing exercises, with these reset exercises, all of this stuff. I definitely recommend looking into that. The other thing I'll say is, when you identify a certain thing, such as in your case, data sufficiency, one thing that can help with that is essentially repetition and familiarity. You want it to get to the point in your brain where there's a certain baseline level of knowledge and comfort, so that you're not having to use so many brain cycles just being like, wait, what is this again? What am I doing here? What's going on? And for something like that, when you can pinpoint it to a specific question type or a specific content area, go and do super low, like the easiest problems that you can find in whatever that area or question type
Mhm.
is, and just go do a bunch of them and then go back over it and look at it and say like, okay, I set this up this way and this is what I did on my scratch paper, but actually in hindsight, I actually should have done this, or I'd rather set something like this up this different way next time, and actually go ahead and write out the new way that you would want to write it out next time, right? So you're doing this on easy problems because um it's not about trying to learn how to do the hardest ones right now. What you're trying to do is get that baseline level of like, oh, I know how to do the basics here so well
Mhm.
that I don't have to expend any brain cycles on it. And so then that frees me up when I do get a harder one to just focus on what's actually hard about this problem.
I don't know why. Again, like I don't know why I didn't think about this. I've just been approaching things with like a mix of different problem types, and I don't know which ones are easy. And I don't know which ones are hard. So they just all feel hard.
Yep. A lot of this is really about doing this, or when you get to grad school, it's about diagnosing your own strengths and weaknesses, like diagnosing your own needs. And so that means actually not just trying different things, which you're already doing, but then stopping and thinking about, well, okay, so how did that go? And not just did I get that right or wrong, but also like, how did I feel about that? Were there any parts that I kind of felt uncomfortable? Or I felt like I was really having a struggle to get through that. And is there anything that I can do just about that little micro piece or skill or whatever it is to help
Mhm.
smooth that out for next time? If you like to play a sport or an instrument or whatever, this is very similar to that as well. And I'll use tennis as an example because I love to play tennis. Like, you need all the strokes and you need all the things to play the game, but then sometimes it's just like, I need to work on my backhand volley. This is the thing that, I keep making mistakes on or I'm losing the most points on. And I need to go and drill this one micro skill for an hour and just get it to feel better so that it can feed into all of the other pieces.
For whatever reason, I decided to dive right into the thing that is hardest for me. And I wonder if I should have instead tackled a content domain that is more to my speed.
I
I wonder
love
if
that
that
you
would have
asked this.
eased.
Thank you so much for asking this. I love that you asked this because this is what I see over and over again is that everybody hits hard on whatever their hardest thing is. It's the thing you're most nervous about, right? So it totally makes sense. You go deep on that. And then two things happen. One is you can pick up points everywhere on this test. All of the sections of the test are opportunities to get more points until you get to the point that you get a perfect score in the section, right? So it means you're leaving points on the table and possibly easier to pick up points because it's an easier area or section for you. And the other thing is just you're going to burn out if you only do the hardest stuff all the time. So you do need to give yourself, I almost think of it as like brain breaks. You're going to look forward to studying the stuff that you like more, that you feel more comfortable with and you feel better at. And so, yeah, it's good when you're sitting down for a study session to start that study session with maybe something that's a little bit harder for you, both because you're a little bit more like awake and aware because you're just starting your study session and you're like motivated, you're coming in, you're studying. And then when you start to slow down, don't necessarily stop right there. Maybe go spend 15 minutes instead doing something that you like more and see whether that gives you a second wind. And then you can keep going again on some of the other stuff that's harder. Or maybe that is just it and you just finish with that. And then that's the end of your study session. But you do want to make sure that you're studying not just the stuff that you find hard, but yeah, that again, unless and until you get to a perfect score in a section, there's still points to pick up there. So let's keep studying.
Do you have any homework assignments for me?
So where are you at with foundations of math?
So I'm halfway through. I think
Okay.
I'm like on fractions and
Fractions and
ratios.
ratios, that kind of thing. Okay. And
Yeah.
there's a lot to learn there. You're getting closer to sort of the second half of the book starts to get into more algebra type things like equations and quadratics and inequalities and that sort of thing. So this is a good, like you're making progress. This is good. And just as a reminder for anyone who, or if you didn't watch one of the earlier podcasts, when you're doing something like this and you're working through a book or a video, like if you're going through a book, what you want to do really is go to the end of that chapter first. There's a problem set at the end of the chapter. And before you read the chapter, just try some of the problems and use that to diagnose. This is the thing I was talking about earlier about understanding what are your needs, what are your strengths and weaknesses. So go do some random problems from the end of the chapter, use that to diagnose. That will tell you where you might already remember some things from your not even undergrad, but high school and earlier schooling, or where you really don't, and you need to dig deeper. And so that'll give you more idea of what you need to prioritize and how you need to work through the chapter itself. And it will also, by the way, just kind of raise curiosity because you'll be like, oh, wait, I don't remember how to find a common denominator. Okay, I know I need to do that.
I
And now
don't.
you, right? And now you're actually going and looking for that because you know you just got that problem wrong. And so you want to go learn it so that you can now go get that problem right next time. So having a goal like that just makes it easier to get into it and to learn what you need to learn. So keep going with that. Keep going through the chapters as we discussed with your little end of chapter mini quiz first, right? And then using that to decide how you're going to move through that chapter. And then, yeah, we'll see where you're at the next time we get together.
Okay. Stacey, thank you so much for your help and advice. And again, for being there for me last week.
Of
It
course.
really means so much to me. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yes, of course.